What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, man, we're going to talk about the old heads running the rap game. And this is true. Seems like the old heads, call them old heads, right? Kendrick, Clipse, a few others. They're the ones making the good music. And there was, once upon a time, it was the hottest, youngest artist or act out. And it seems like you had to go back to the foundation, man. You know what I mean? And I wonder if that's indicative of maybe, I don't want to say, I think honestly, I don't want to say a lack of talent because there's no lack of talent. I think it's indicative of the labels shifting as far as the content that they wanted to promote. And they moved away from the type of music we see being made now because that other stuff is what was working. But I'm gonna get right into this video. This is coming from I Used to Be Pay. It's a good channel over there. Y'all should check it out sometime. But let's get started.
Pay, and today I'm back with another video. And in this video, I'm gonna be talking about how old heads are running the rap game right now. But before I get into that, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Do all those things. It helps me out a ton. Now, about a year ago, I dropped a video titled Rap is Getting Older or something of that sort, where I talked about how a lot of the top stars in rap were getting older and to a level that we really hadn't seen before. You know, they were pushing 40, in their early 40s or in their mid to late 40s. This stands even more true, though, now than it did a year ago, as we're coming off the heels of this new Clipse album, Let God Sort 'Em Out, where Pusha T, 48 years old, and Malice, 52 years old, dropped their first album together in like 15 years or so. And they ended up dropping probably the album of the year. Now, it's still July. Other stuff is going to come out, but I think people are going to have a hard time topping what Clipse just did with this new project.
It's going to be very difficult. It is going to be very difficult. I was going through a bunch of other TikToks just yesterday, actually. I mean, the diversity of people responding and reacting and reviewing this album, young, old, white, black, all the different reels. It's the reception. I wonder, now I know that they probably expected for it to do well, but I wonder if it even exceeded their expectations at this point as far as how much fire is caught, man. I mean, look, and this is, again, to me, this might be anecdotal, but this is proof of what the people like. If record companies ain't listening, they need to listen to this, because this is more proof of what the people really want, what the people really been looking for, what the people really been yearning for, right? Whether it's GNX, whether it's this, one of the Tyler Creators projects, whatever it may be, this is a large flashing sign saying, hey, this is what the people want. This is the type of music we need to be putting out or getting artists to put out. These are the kind of artists we need to be looking for. We need old heads, and we gotta call them old heads, right? Pushing them is actually old heads. I don't know if I necessarily consider Kendrick in them old heads. He's 38, but we need them to champion and reforge the path or the way forward. Reforge it, right? Because it kind of got wiped out for a minute there with the BS. But this is the people telling you, this is what we want. Bars is back, right?
Old rappers have, dropped great albums in the past, so it's not like this is anything new, but this time it just feels different. Nas and Killer Mike have been dropping great albums well into their 40s for years now, so it's not like mind-shattering or groundbreaking that Clipse can drop a great album in their 50s. Where things are different this time, though, is their place of relevance in modern hip-hop. This Clipse album transcends age. It's not just older fans or old rap fans enjoying this album. There isn't anyone who is, a serious platform or a serious rap personality who talks about mainstream rap who hasn't discussed this album, whether they like it or not, or they're just talking about the drama with Travis Scott. Like, everyone has been talking about this.
Two things I want to say real quick before I forget, but the one thing is, yes, it does transcend age. And I think you got to give the Clipse, you got to give Kendrick and them credit, and even Tyler, to be able to put out music that's able to resonate. I'm not going to say still resonate, right? Because if you say still, that would imply like maybe their original fan bases, but those fan bases have grown, but that's able to resonate even with and bring in new fans, right? So resonate with the Gen Zers and all of that. But it says a lot to the effort that they put into it and understanding that, knowing that, look, we do want to relate to our base and give those fans of ours that been with us since day one what they want. But we also, in order to have more success, I'm not going to say be successful, but to have more success, we also need to have a sound and have the type of content that's able to bring in those new ears, right? But and this is what frustrates me, and I got to bring this up. This is what frustrates me so much about Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne could right now be a part of this conversation of hip hop being reborn. I guess if you want to say that. I mean, I know What's the Dirt put out some bullshit. There's been this conversation about whether or not, hip hop is back and so on and so forth. Has it always been? Is people not paying attention? I ain't trying to hear none of that. Right? We're talking about the excitement. No matter what you say, people haven't been this excited in a long time. And Kendrick battling Drake was the genesis for all of this, no matter how you look at it. And Clipse is so far that next chapter in continuing to fan the flames. And so, like I was saying, this is what fucking kind of annoys me about Lil Wayne. He should be a part of this conversation for someone who was such a big part of building it and, putting so much good music out there and building his own legacy. For him to come out with that lackluster, lazy, I'm going to call it lazy, man, because there wasn't real effort put into that project. There wasn't real effort into promoting that project. There just wasn't. Wayne should be a part of this whole conversation of the old heads who are bringing this shit back to where it's supposed to be. Instead, man, he fumbled the ball and he fumbled bad. And it's not because he didn't have the resources or the skill and ability to do it. I think it was just a quickly put together lazy project, man. I really do. If Wayne had taken the time and put in that type of effort that the Clipse did to not only work on his project, get the producers he needed, make the music, do it right until it's right? Do it over and over again until it's right. Do the rollout properly instead of doing some damn video talking about, oh, it's coming. And we could be having a whole different conversation, right? But we don't. And instead, we have the Clipse who are showing this is how it's supposed to be done.
Album. Even somebody like XQC who, isn't really into rap like that, even he has talked about this album, even if it's negatively, like it's everywhere. When older rappers drop albums, they typically kind of fall to the background and they end up just being for that rapper's original audience that they've had for 20 to 30 years.
Right.
Or
That's what I was just saying.
When Nas drops an album, he's not typically gaining new fans. He's pretty much just dropping it for the people that already love Nas, or he's not really getting attention from people outside of his fan base. And that's not me trying to be disrespectful or anything like that. And I'm sure people have become Nas fans. I'm not saying that every person that ever listened to these new Nas albums were already a huge fan of his, but I'm just saying in general, it was typically for his reserved fan base, and he wasn't really getting an outreach into modern hip hop with his new projects. In my opinion, this is even true for the really popular older rappers like Eminem. Even though Eminem is still one of the best-selling rappers in the world, I would argue he's not relevant to the modern rap scene, as he's really just making music for his fans that already exist, but the wider culture isn't really talking about Eminem anymore. They're not discussing him and ranking his modern music and seeing who he matches up against and if he's still one of the best out. Like, that's just not really happening. You don't see constant blog posts about Eminem or hip hop Twitter stopping whatever they're doing to discuss his music for weeks on end after he drops it.
This is a really good point, man. And it's true. And of course, it doesn't take anything away from him because he still does well. But I didn't even think about that. And if you think about it, this is going to be part of Drake's legacy. Now he's not one who was out the game for a certain amount of time and then came back and dropped the project like Eminem, like Clipse, which I think if he was, he wouldn't have that success. But here's the question, right? Is he even able still at this point to bring in new listeners? I mean, that's a valid question. Yes, he has his fan base, and right now it seems like that's what he's living off of. That's what's keeping him afloat. That's what's keeping him from fading into oblivion at this point. Literally, Drake's fan base is the only thing standing between him and fucking irrelevancy. I don't think he's bringing in any new listeners, and I think in fact, it's the exact opposite. He's losing more than he's bringing in, and so that's going to be a key component in any future success he's looking to have. He's talking about putting out Instagram posts about he's going to get this number one way or another. Well, you're not going to get that if you can't bring in new listeners and you can't find a way to relate to them. But I don't, as right now, I could be wrong. I reserve my right to change my opinion at any given time, but he's not showing that he has what it is that Kendrick is able to do, right? He said, you said I couldn't reach Gen Z, you D heads, right? Same thing. Clipse said the same thing about that. And so I think it takes a different type of artist, a different type of vision, and a great ability to be nimble and creative to be able to get outside of your box and understand, first of all, what it is that generation would even listen to, and to still put it out there in a way that's like authentic enough for people to listen to it and not be like, oh man, this nigga trying too hard, right? He tripping. So I don't know, man. I think the only thing standing between Drake and like I said, irrelevancy is his fan base. That's the only thing keeping him afloat. He ain't bringing it. He couldn't do this what Clipse is doing. He couldn't do that. He can't go away for years and come back. I don't think he could do it. He might have some success because he'll have his fans, but will he bring in new fans? Nah.
This new Clipse album isn't just for their original fans who are coming back to enjoy their music again. It's also for Gen Z. Gen Z's listening to it too.
Right.
People like myself who either weren't born yet or were too young to remember Clipse at their peak in the early 2000s. And it's kind of funny as well that the main competition for this album is the new Jack Boys album, which is seen as like the young people music. And Jack Boys is a collective or a label that's owned by Travis Scott. He's the main guy. He's the main star of Jack Boys. He's also the same guy who responded to Pusha T dissing him by calling Pusha T old. And he's 34 years old. Now, that's not old in real life, but in rap, low-key, like 34 is kind of old, especially when you look at the type of music that Travis Scott makes, and he's considered, you know, a part of this newer, modern era of rap. Kendrick Lamar is the hottest guy in rap right now. He's doing a stadium tour. He just headlined the Super Bowl halftime show. His last, year and a half have been one of the greatest runs we've ever seen in rap history. He is 38 years old. People like to make those jokes of, oh, he's pushing 40, but look, Kendrick is really pushing 40. Like, it's not a joke. And it's not just the people who have always been Kendrick fans supporting him and getting him as hot as he is right now. He is still actively gaining fans. He is attracting the younger audience, the younger fans, the teenage fans. Kendrick didn't reach 100 million monthly listeners on Spotify strictly from 40-year-old fathers of three on their way to Pop Warner games. The young people who spread trends on TikTok and speak about rap all day on social media, who were in elementary school at the start of Kendrick's career, are now listening too. Tyler, the Creator, just put out another album that seems to be taking over the scene. He's 34 years old, and it seems like he's just gaining more and more momentum as time goes on. His album is only going to count for 4 days worth of numbers, but it seems to be on track to do over 200K first week. I bring this up all the time, but Future is...
I haven't even looked into that. If he does over 200K on 4 days, that would be sick. Let me see something. Yo, this is crazy. Check this out real quick. And I'm going to get back to the video in a second. But Tyler, Creator, poised to have solid opening sales week for Don't Tap the Glass. And down here it says, but for T, that's far from true. Chromacopia almost moved 300 copies with a similar Monday release. Don't Tap the Glass is also on pace for a solid debut with early projections sitting at 215. I mean, that would be crazy, yo. What's more, though, is that well over half, 65% of the sales are physical copies. They are reporting that 140,000 is the figure. With stats like these, a number one debut on the Hot 200 is certainly in sight. However, we will have a better idea of the chart placement later, closer to next Tuesday. Yo, that would be fucking nuts. I ain't even gonna lie.
41 years old. He's still rapping about drugs and toxic relationships. He has like 11 kids, bro. His oldest son is like 23 years old. And he's still rapping about the stuff he was rapping about 15 years ago. I know Drake is cool and buddy with Aiden Ross and Kai Cenat, but he's not in their age group. He turns 39 this year. The idea that rap is a young man's game is still true, but not in the way that it used to be.
Right.
Younger fans from like 15 to like 30 still determine what's in and like what's hot and what's cool. They still are the drivers of what makes the charts and who has the most cultural currency and who's selling the most. It's just that now young people aren't only selecting other young people to have the juice. In sports, athletes typically start to fall off once they pass the age of like 33. Maybe they still find ways to be great, but you see their explosivity, speed, jumping ability, and just overall physical ability deteriorate. By the time they hit 35 and up, most of them are retiring or at the very end of their career and nowhere near the player they used to be, unless you're LeBron James. But this is just simple human biology. Our bodies peak athletically if you're active around like 27. Once you pass that, it's natural to decline. Yet we often saw a very similar timeline in rap, and I never understood that. Rap is not an athletic venture, but rappers fell off at the same time as athletes. Hypothetically, you would think rappers would be able to get better or at least stay hyper relevant into their 40s, as rapping is a mental activity only, and you only lose mental capacities at a noticeable rate until like much later in life. By 2010, 50 Cent had fully fallen from the heights he was at in the peak of his career in the early 2000s, where he was one of the biggest stars in music, period, and he was around the age of 35. When Wayne kind of fell from one of the centerpieces of rap around like 2015, he was 33. When T.I. cooled off from his nuclear early 2000s run, mid 2000s run, around like 2013, 2014, he was 33. It was a pretty natural occurrence for rappers to start a come down in their mid 30s. They might still be hot, but they weren't the guy they used to be at their peak numbers. And they're definitely not going to be going on the biggest runs of their career at age 38 like Kendrick, or start doing the best numbers of your career at 40 like Future. The main outlier for this, though, has been JayZ, as it doesn't matter if he's 25, 45, or...
I was just about to say that with JayZ. But I wonder, okay, so I wonder what the factors are. Is it more, now it definitely got something to do with the skill of the individual. But I also wonder is it the industry sometimes they want the image, they want the young, because they look for certain types of people, right? So with T.I., because T.I. still got skills. I wonder if it's more like, all right, you're getting kind of older, and the industry telling them you're not appealing, and they're, I wonder if they take the bad advice that they're no longer, I guess, attractive to a certain demographic, instead of finding ways to reinvent themselves or use their creativity to remain relevant. Or is it just like a purely skill thing? Like he said, I find it hard to believe that mentally it seemed like you would get better at something like rapping as you got older, not worse. So that's something to think about. But yeah, JayZ is definitely different when it comes to that. But I mean, Kendrick's moving along just fine as far as that goes when it comes to rapping. I mean, he might do something like that. I don't think Drake will. Cole kind of pretty much ain't been doing nothing, so it's hard to say what might come of him. And future. So,
or however old he is today, if he were to drop some music, an album, or maybe even like a feature, he is still going to be the topic of discussion. We saw this with his album 444 that he dropped when he was like 43, 44, so somewhere in the range of like his mid 40s. And that album ended up being one of the most important pieces of rap music and rap media of the 2010s decade. Now, JayZ is the exception. He's not the rule. So him doing that maybe didn't mean that much for like everyone else, but at the same time, maybe it did, because he was the first rapper to really do that, be at that advanced age, again, advanced for rap, and be so dominant to the culture. And maybe he was the one that kind of opened the door for this to be a reality. And then Ye was literally not too far behind him, only being like a few years younger or something like that. And from 2016 onwards, Kanye was still a dominant figure despite being in his 40s. Rappers are sticking around a lot longer, and it's becoming seemingly a little bit more difficult for some of these younger rappers to break that glass ceiling and become these huge mainstream stars. Someone like Playboi Carti really just finally became a huge star. He was already a big name, a big star in rap, but he really did hit another level with this new album Music. Not to quote Swamp Izzo from the album, but that was really a true statement. And Playboi Carti either turns 29 or he turns 30 this year. There's conflicting reports about how old he is, but still, he is finally breaking through as a huge star while being 30 or pushing 30. There are still young stars in rap, don't get me wrong. NBA YoungBoy is about to drop his album soon, and he's going to go on an arena tour that will tear up the rap world, and he's 26. It's just that these old heads are sticking around, and they're not just going away. I predict that Freddie Gibbs' next album, Alfredo 2, might have a similar effect as the Clipse album, where it picks up more steam than you'd expect. What it looks like is happening here is that rappers are starting to peak much later into their career, or they're extending their longevity much further than we're used to seeing. Rappers used to peak around the ages of like 25 to 30, something like that. Now rappers can peak much later into their career. Whether you're peaking numbers-wise like a Future or Kendrick Lamar, or you're dropping arguably the best album in your discography like Clipse. I would theorize that rappers being able to do this is due to rappers getting a bit smarter and a little bit better at rap as they get older and gain more experience, but at the same time still being able to connect with the younger audience via the internet and social media. Rap was always seen as a genre that you could grow out of. You're too old to be a rapper, or like the game said a long time ago, you're 38 and you're still rapping, which is one of the worst aged bars in the history of rap. This was because of the stereotypical topics that come with rap: money, violence, turning up in the club, and things of that nature. But I think as rap hit 50 years old, it truly has evolved, and not just in the way of like, oh, young people and new generations are finding new sounds and using hip hop in different ways and thinking outside the box. The genre has grown so much now that it's not just a space for young people only.
Okay, so yeah, wouldn't that be the point then? The relevancy of the content. So yeah, if the majority of your content is I'm clubbing, selling drugs, running the streets, and this and that, yeah, that would age out eventually, right? But and this is where we get to bars. When you talk about bars, that's not to say that type of content don't have bars, but you got to have bars beyond that type of content if you want to go past the age of irrelevancy, right? So yeah, I think it may have more to do with that. And again, if the labels in them are only looking for artists, and you got these time periods where we got the club scene, or we got the drum music, and you're going to age out if that's the type of music you're making. So as an artist, you got to don't get boxed into that. But I can understand, hey, you gotta get your money somehow, but understand that there's a clock that's running out way faster than if you were to do other types of content when it comes to rapping. And so, but not everybody has that skill. So I do think that's more of a skill level thing too. And not everybody can be Kendrick, Clipse, Tyler, or it's a skill level where you can have substance beyond, oh, I'm getting money, oh, I'm fucking bitches, oh, I'm in the clubs and I'm doing that. That's where I think Drake will stumble going forward. I don't think he has content beyond that. He hasn't shown it that I far now. Some of you Drake fans are going to disagree with me, right? But that's all I ever hear him talk about. And as we've seen, that has a very short shelf life, and he's kind of reaching that right now. I mean, we'll see what happens though.
50-year-olds can now carve out a space for themselves in hip hop and not feel like they're forcing it or feel super out of touch. Older rappers are adapting and have developed in a way in which their career can extend well into their middle age. But if you made it this far, I greatly, greatly appreciate you. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah,
Let me know
man,
if
for
you
sure, brother.
disagree.
For sure, definitely. And so the old heads is running the game right now, man. Kendrick, Clipse, even Tyler and them. Going forward, I think that if we stay on this path, we'll see things like that as far as bars being back, unless and until some new wave comes along. But it is interesting that there are really no like hot young rap stars right now, like young, like we used to always see, right? Used to always be who's next, who's the next hot young rap star. I mean, I can't think of none off the top right now. I'm talking about hot, right? I ain't just talking about somebody that's out there. If y'all know somebody, drop it in the comment section. But longevity is more about your ability to adapt and the skill to be able to create the type of content that'll resonate not just with your original fan base, but be able to bring in a new people and grow your fan base, right? And I gotta add Drake to this if you wonder why I keep bringing him up, because he's part of the conversation. Regardless, even though he didn't bring him up, Drake is part of it. And will he be able to do what Kendrick is doing, what the Clipse have done, what people like that do by growing past their original fan base, right? Let me know what y'all think about this in the comment section below. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll check y'all in the next one.